So Cameron back again. Another Monday night late here for us. Seems to be our usual thing, and I enjoy the hell out of this. The audience loves this. So before I get going, of course, as always, you guys go out there. Thank you so much for being here. This channel is growing. We're on the march to 2,000. We are about 150 subs away, and we just started like 10 months ago. This is crazy. And of course, as always, please go check out Kamran Pasha's Patreon, because if you like what we talk about here, you need to definitely go be following Cameron on Patreon, because that's where a lot of this discussion begins and gets going. Cameron and I start talking over there, and then it winds up being videos like this. So, so much is happening. In this
particular case, Patreon was pivotal because we had this conversation maybe a week ago about this topic on Patreon, and everything played out the way we discussed.
It did. It really did. And as a matter of fact, you bring that up, Cameron. And it was funny because earlier today, when this news about Rogue Squadron, this Patty Jenkins movie, another one of these Kathleen Kennedy, coveted projects, just like the Rian Johnson trilogy that will never happen, as I said early on. This is another one of these things now that has been thrown off into the ether of limbo. And here we are. And I was talking to some friends privately on Twitter tonight in a DM with some Star Wars YouTubers, and I mentioned in there, hey, you know what? It's funny. 2 months ago, I was talking to some YouTuber buddies of mine, and I said, I swear, I bet you Rogue Squadron gets shit canned. I bet it never happens, or I bet something goes down. It's going to be just like the Acolyte. It's going to be just like the Rian Johnson trilogy. I can smell this coming. This Patty Jenkins promo with her standing in front of an X-Wing on a runway was like 11 months ago now. And according to IMDb Pro, the last several months, nothing has happened. It has gone nowhere. It's not even listed as in pre-production. And somebody in the DM, and I will say his name because he is a dear friend and I want to help his channel out, X-Wing, I hope you're watching, great Star Wars YouTuber and a brother from the Echo Base Network out there, my friends at Echo Base Network, but go check out X-Wing. X-Wing was like, yeah, I was there. I remember when you said that. That was like a month or two ago. And so here we are in Rogue Squadron today, just 2 days ahead of the Disney earnings call, 4 days ahead of the Disney Plus day. And when you and I were talking, and we never had this conversation on camera yet, and we're about to have it now, folks, about Miss Kathleen Kennedy, saying that, there was never going to be a fanfare for her if and when she retired, left, whatever.
Yes.
It was going to be quiet. It was going to happen under cover of darkness, because that is what Disney does.
Yeah, it would be a fait accompli.
Yeah, fait accompli. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been I've joked with you about this, I think. I know I've joked with a number of folks about this, and I said, you know what? If I turn on Disney Plus Day on November 12th and somebody other than KK gives the Lucasfilm segment, I will laugh myself to death.
It's looking more and more likely, my friend.
I tell you what, after Indy 5 was shit canned for a year, even though, granted, it is still in principal photography. They are still shooting it.
They're still shooting some stuff, and that's
right, but that does not mean anything at this point. And now the only other film project that Kathleen Kennedy was directly tied to under Lucasfilm has now also been shit canned. This is getting ridiculous. This is getting good. Yeah, I mean, Disney is singling out the Lucasfilm projects for hiatus and really indefinite hiatus. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, and then Indiana 5, at least 1 year, but even the trades are noticing that 1 year might be too much. 1 year with Harrison Ford, God bless him at his age, with his health issues, it may be unfilmable 1 year from now, if that's the delay. Even the trades are acknowledging that. And now with this thing, with Rogue Squadron, with Patty Jenkins, it's been removed from the production schedule altogether. There's no, we'll start in 8 months, we'll start in early 2023. It's just been taken off.
Nope. Gone.
And so, I always look, there's in the last several months that I have, and then we've had this conversation, I've intuited that Miss Kennedy is on her way out and put together various things that were happening, including for me, the nail in the coffin was that Atlantic article that came out in April, May, which was anointing Jon Favreau as the great savior of Star Wars, which other previous administrations at Disney, which by definition is Kathleen Kennedy's administration, couldn't do. I said, okay, she's finished. The Atlantic is not even a Hollywood piece. For this to come out here, this was seeded to enter in the cultural frame conversation of the elites.
That is a cultural publication, to be
like
sure. And that is one of the paramount, frankly, left-wing cultural publications in the U.S.
Correct. And it's there to tell the elites what their official narratives at the cocktails parties have to be. And so that was the elite. So we have a new champion of Star Wars. And I was like, why is this coming to the Atlantic out of nowhere? Right? It's because that's the official story. And I believed it had been seeded by Bob Chapek, and nothing has changed my view on that over time. So that's when I started viewing that Miss Kennedy was finished. And she had reached some kind of settlement with Bob Chapek, and that was their way of announcing it without announcing it. And then time has certainly shown no evidence that she is actively involved in any way. Events do not seem to be under her control. Indiana Jones 5, and now today, and even before this, we had rumors, not officially confirmed, but rumors that the Acolyte, this alleged TV series that's made by her own acolyte, Leslie Headland, has been allegedly pushed forward many months. That's not been confirmed, but I think it's true. And because I said that was going to happen. And
I will say right now, if you folks out there watching right now, if the Acolyte does not have any kind of production update in 4 days on Disney Plus, if the Acolyte is not mentioned, or if it is mentioned, but it has like a substantial differential from what we've had up to this point, I've said one of two things: either the Acolyte is gonna find the dumpster in very short order, or it is going to be radically altered from what it was originally intended to be. Yeah, originally the Acolyte story. Yeah, a totally different story. Meaning it's not going to be, it's not going to be starring Brie Larson, which is what the original quote unquote intention was. It's not going to follow the High Republic series that Lucasfilm has put out, because that has been a sales financial disaster for them.
Throwing more money after bad to do that.
Yeah, they're only hanging on at this point. People ask, well, why do they still make the books? It's very simple. It's when you contract these writers to produce 2, 3, 4 books a piece, it becomes an issue of sunk costs. If you're already on the hook for that, if you've already committed to that, if you cut them loose, you still have to pay them anyway.
Yeah, so and here's a few people will buy it, and there'll be the loss will be a little bit less than it would have been.
You mitigate the losses by keeping them on board and trying to sell a few books. And that's what I'm trying to get across to people from a financial and business perspective. That's how this shit works. I promise you.
In dealing with a lot of our colleagues in the fandom, or at least our friends in the fandom, especially in the chats, a lot of these YouTubes and videos, is that they don't know how this industry works. Yep. It's almost like a child demanding its candy and not understanding, how lunchtime works, or mom is making a good meal. You've got to go through these processes, and it's often a little frustrating for me, is what I'm telling people for the last several months. Miss Kennedy's pretty much finished. I mean, for me, I knew that the moment the Atlantic article came out, and everything that's happened since then continues to support that belief that she's essentially finished. Doesn't mean she's not collecting a paycheck. Doesn't mean she's not, going to get some awards. It just means that she's basically.
And they may have extended her for 6 months.
They could have. But even then, all these projects are past that. That's why whatever the name only, not enough to get to Indiana Jones 5, whatever that is,
right?
And whatever. The extension, if she's been extended, it ain't for a year. It ain't for a year.
No, and this is the thing that again, we have talked about this a number of times, with the whole issue of Bob Chapek making it not only abundantly clear in the Hollywood trades, but also in the business and financial magazines out there like Forbes, that the days of these long-term upper-level Disney executive contracts are verboten. They're gone. They're done. We're not going to have these 3, 4, 5 year. And I mean, you look at the executives that had those lengths of contracts, they were specifically the studio heads, the subsidiaries of Disney, like the KKs, like the Feiges, like we talked about last week. And of course, now we have this, the opening box office weekends of these new Marvel movies this year so far have just continued to trend down, and the production budgets on each of these movies continues to trend up. This is a problem, and I've said before, like, how is it that Sony is producing movies like Spider-Man, and they're producing movies like Venom, and they're spending less money consistently than Disney is spending on their big superhero movies, which are making less money? you know, by comparison.
Well,
So, you know, there's
Disney
all these kind of things that Chapek is looking at, and this is where we are now. And you've got these executives, and he's like, you know what, this is coming to an end, and it's just one thing after another. We saw big restructurings with ABC and ESPN in the last few weeks that was announced publicly on Variety. That was all Chapek's doing. We see big restructurings coming. I think you're going to see this coming forward with places like Lucasfilm and Marvel over the next few years. We don't know how much longer Kevin Feige's contract is running, but he's definitely under the gun.
Yeah, and I don't know that even if he has a contract that's 2 years long, that he won't be asked to resign before then and be given a golden parachute based on the events that have been happening in the last several months, where he took on Bob Chapek, you know, through proxies and failed quite miserably. And now even the trade-like Deadline that has been his ally is turning against the movie The Eternals. I personally think that he's going to be asked to step down, whatever his contract is, in the near future.
Wake-up call to Marvel. I couldn't believe
that. Deadline. From Deadline, not from the New York Post. People said, "Oh, look, the New York Post." The New York Post is a
screw the New York. Yeah, they are. That's why I was like, the New York Post article did not get me at all. That did not shock
Deadline.
me. The Deadline article, when I saw that, it was Cameron's Patreon who called that to my attention, folks. And I went over, I'm like, oh, there's no way. And I pulled it up. I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And I did a video that night on it, Saturday night.
Because it is an earthquake. That Deadline article is an earthquake. Everything that's happened with the Eternals is an earthquake. To have the LA Times, to have BBC, to have Slate, to have Rolling Stone all say this is not a good movie, and to all criticize the fake representation element of it, which was what these outlets had all been promoting for years, which is fake representation. For them to suddenly switch and say, oh, just having a character that's black or brown that's poorly written is not fair. It's actually kind of racist, right? To do that to someone. We've been saying that since The Last Jedi. We've been saying that since Rose Tico. We've been saying that since Finn was made a janitor, right? And it was made in Last Jedi to walk around in this stupid plastic suit like a comical clown, right? We've been saying that for years now, and we were the racist. And now these media outlets that had promoted that narrative have flipped it, and it wasn't gradual. It was a light switch. These reviews came out like, what is going on here? And then Deadline, I said, this is an organized campaign from the top to change the narrative overnight. And you know what it reminded me of? There's a great thing. I remember this. Someone once, I saw someone post together headlines from Paris newspapers, from a prominent Paris newspaper in the days of Napoleon, when Napoleon had been exiled. And then he returned for his sort of comeback, right?
When it was on Elba.
When he escaped the island. And then you see the daily newspapers of the days from the escape to him marching back into Paris and taking back control. The day he escapes, the newspapers are like, evil tyrant has escaped. We must all be ready to stop him to save the nation. But each day, as he gets one step closer to Paris with his army, it starts changing. The headline starts going from evil tyrant, and then finally it gets to the day as he walks in, the glorious liberator Napoleon. And it's daily the headlines are changing on the same newspaper because they're seeing the world changing around them, and the news is trying to catch up to it as quickly as possible. You know, evil dictator to a military strategic person to glorious liberator within a period of 1 week.
There was a great line in The Count of Monte Cristo. Treason is a matter of dates.
Well, that's exactly
what
Washington
it is.
Was a traitor, and had he not won, he would have been hung. He knew that. And after he won, Jefferson Davis rose up against the system, and he's the traitor.
Right.
It's just the way it works. It's the moment in time.
It's a matter of dates. That's all it is.
And it's a matter of who wins that conflict. So that's where we are with. And so when I saw this happening in the last week, I said, there's a sea change. And I think we can talk about now, what is the pressure of the sea change? And I think certain Disney earnings calls that are coming in the next few days pressured. It's not
2 days. Thursday afternoon at 3:30 Central Standard Time, 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. And you best believe that VR is going to be watching that call.
No, we're going to get your immediate feedback on that. But that's it. They knew that's coming. There's no time left. There was no time for a gradual build to a narrative change. The light switch had to go from diversity to fake diversity is unacceptable in 1 day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think, you know, going back to this whole Patty Jenkins thing, and I just want everybody out there to, you know, understand and be clear. I have a lot of respect for what Patty Jenkins did as a director when it came to
I
like
love the first Wonder Woman.
The first Wonder Woman film was amazing. It's really I think the only DC film, superhero film that I really enjoyed. I mean, I had my complaints. Yeah, I had my complaints about the CGI. I thought it was chintzy.
And some people didn't like the third act when Ares shows up.
That wasn't a Patty Jenkins issue. That was a that's a Warner Brothers issue. With not getting maybe the right post VFX firm. Fine. Yeah. That being said, it's a budgetary issue. But as far as story, as far as direction, I enjoyed it. However, in that movie, of course, Patty Jenkins had, I guess, a co-writer, for lack of better words, somebody that could kind of put her ideas.
Well, she wasn't a credited writer. There were professional screenwriters.
Okay, I thought she had writing credits on that. She didn't.
No, she had writing credits on Wonder Woman 1984. And I will reveal this.
Right.
Close friends of mine who are.
No, I know she got on the second one.
Yeah, high-level screenwriter friends of mine who know the people involved revealed to me that, because I was like, where are those brilliant screenwriters in the second movie? Why are they not there? He said he knew them. He said, well, what had happened was that apparently Ms. Jenkins had requested a writer credit on the first movie. And they had declined, saying, I'm sure she gave some ideas, as a director does. But he said, but you didn't write a word of this. We wrote this. We're not going to share credit. And the Writers Guild had an arbitration. She lost the arbitration. She didn't get any credit. They're like, you didn't write this movie. We're not going to give you, they don't want to give you credit. You're not going to get it. And so apparently she was, after the massive success of that film, she said, I don't need these writers. They didn't respect me enough to give me my writer credit that I deserved in her mind. So she let them go. And she made sure she was the co-writer, the announced and credited co-writer of the next movie, which is a disastrous film. And it's a disastrous film from a story point. The script doesn't work, and it's a bad script. And you're like, okay, all right, she's a brilliant director, but she doesn't know how to write. And maybe...
And that, let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of directors out there in Hollywood that are like that, and that's okay. Everybody needs to know their specialty.
But that's the thing. Let me reference that from a personal experience here.
Yeah.
So this has happened to me twice. Unfortunately, there's been a growing trend in the last several years, fed by people like Ms. Jenkins and others who, and maybe even Ms. Chloe Zhao, who co-wrote this Eternals movie, right? Is that a lot of directors have believed that they're writers, because the highest level of prestige in Hollywood is the writer-director, the Night Shyamalan who writes The Sixth Sense.
Right. Yeah.
Right? That's the highest level of prestige.
You got to respect your own boundaries.
Right. But so everyone wants to be the writer-director. So a lot of directors fume at the idea that they're not the writer. They see themselves as a storyteller. And it's even though essentially in filmmaking, they're the auteur, they get to tell the story of the script, right? And they get the higher credit in the billing, at least in movies. In television, the writer is more in charge. However, I've seen this cultural shift in the last several years with a lot of directors who are not writers and don't have that ability, attempting to bulldoze their way into it. So it happened to me twice. In two circumstances within just the last couple of years, I had directors that were major directors that would have advanced the project attached to two of my pilots, two separate television pilots I'd written. And in each case, the directors decided they were going to do a pass on the script. In one instance, they did it without my permission. They didn't even tell me. They said, let me just give you a few notes. Instead of giving me a few notes, a week later, I was emailed a new script, completely rewritten from scratch. And it was pure garbage. I mean, it was pure garbage. Line one, it was pure garbage.
Oh,
and I went to it because the producer looked at it and go, Cameron, can you fix this? I said, I can't fix this. Let's go back to my original draft. That was a greenlit draft. They're like, oh, we can't do that because that's going to make him look bad. I was like, yeah, sure, it's going to make him look bad. He screwed this up, right? So that was first. The second instance just happened about a few months ago. Another major director, man, I really respected, high-level award-winning director. In this, he pressured me in front of, he basically said, can I, because we were going to film the script in another language. It was written in English. We were going to film the script in another language. He said, and he was from that country. And he said, can I just do a pass on that in my native language? Because we were going to take it to A-list actresses, Hollywood actresses that are from that country. And I said, it put me in a very awkward position because I was on a Zoom call and he just laid this on me. And I said to him, all right, you can do just a pass to show your actress friend in your language what you want to do with this. But I said to him, but the only way I'll agree to this is I have to be able to do the final pass on the production draft. It has to be in my voice because I'm the showrunner of this thing. He said, yeah, of course, no problem. Goes off. And the pass is not only a complete rewrite, it's a new script. He basically sets the story a week before the original pilot. So it's just a whole new adventure. He just creates a new adventure out of nowhere. And of course, it's garbage. And then they're like, and then they said, okay, we made a mistake. We shouldn't have let him do a pass on this. Can you work with him to fix it? I said, there's not working. Let's go back to the original draft that you all loved, right? Let's go back to the original. None of this was necessary.
Yeah, we didn't need to. There's nothing to fix. It was fixed before you fucked it up.
You all love it. We can film this draft. You've all said we can film. This is the, and so I said, let's just go back to the original draft. We'll translate it into that language. We'll give it to the actress. And he said, no. He has to get a co-writer credit on it. I said, well, that's not going to happen. If Ang Lee had come to me and rewritten my script and elevated it, I'm just an example of Ang Lee, of a director I respect, and he elevated it. And I was like, this script is better because of Ang Lee. I'd be like, yeah, Ang Lee, written by Kamran Pasha and Ang Lee and Kamran, whatever, right? This gentleman, it wasn't Ang Lee, but this other director, sure. He had degraded the project. And then instead of backing away with some graciousness, he insisted that he still get, even though I was asked to fix his disaster, just like the other time, fix it, he insisted he would still get a co-writer credit because his ego needed to be a writer on the project. His ego needed it, just like Ms. Jenkins, just like maybe Ms. Zhao, right? And so this has been a problem. In each of those cases, the projects died. They're now being resurrected with other people, but were delayed for months and even in some cases several years because someone came in, a director came in, rewrote it out of ego, ruined the project, and then threw everything into chaos. In each case, it was ready to sell.
Yeah.
It was ready for green light. In each case, it was ruined by the egos of a director. So we're having this problem, and apparently Ms. Jenkins has this problem where her ego can't accept that this isn't a skill. I said, I've directed short films. I know what I'm good at. The short film scripts are very good. There's some really good performances I got because I know how to talk to actors. But there's other areas that I was like, okay, I really need a good cinematographer. I don't know cinematography. It's not my skill. Do I know sound design? I don't know that. I need to get the best people possible, right? Yep. And defer to them because I don't have this skill. I know what, and that's why I think I'll have a career as a director moving forward because I know what I don't know, and I'm comfortable with that. Whereas these directors that we're seeing are not comfortable with their egos not being writers because to them, writing is the storytelling. I'm like, you're right, it is. You don't have that ability. So focus on the visual genius that you do have.
Well, it's funny. We've had a couple of different stories so far that I have seen, read, heard on this in the last 24 hours. And of course, the first was the mundane, generic, oh, well, the scheduling just didn't work out. And
real busy. Real busy.
Look, let me tell you what, when Patty Jenkins, I think it was like a week or two ago, and there was some article or some interview with her, and it might have been longer than that. I don't remember, but it's been in the recent past, very recent past. And she was talking about, okay, yeah, we're gonna be working on Wonder Woman 3, and she's working on this project and that project. And really nowhere in that article did she talk about Rogue Squadron. And that was like the second light that went off. And I'm like,
this should be high up on the list.
She gets out there and she does this giant promo with her walking down a runway out in California.
And her father was an airman.
And all this stuff, like, this came out in January, for God's sake, or something like that, or right after the Disney Plus Day last year in December. And that wasn't even, and that was when I knew. I'm like, I had my suspicions a month or two before. When I saw that a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, I freaking know it. This is a turkey at this point. And then later today, and I don't remember who it was from, but of course we had another article out there, and of course this could all just be hyperbole for all we know, or just completely made up. But I tend to give it some credit that they had all kind of crazy production issues, and they couldn't get this together and that together and the other thing, and this was a mess and that was a mess, and Patty wasn't working well with this person and that person. And again, I don't know if any of that is accurate or not. I tend to think there might be some truth to it. I also tend to think that we haven't heard anything about this in 11 months. It's gone nowhere. And this is just another one of these things where Chapek said, nah, this is a turkey. And, I don't think it's any coincidence that just a matter of a few weeks after we get this news on Indy 5, that the only other film project that Kathleen Kennedy had under her belt, quote unquote, at this point, also got pooped.
Yeah. Well, look, this is what Ms. Kennedy has proven is that aside from her political, ideological tainting of these projects, right? Aside from that, she's also very much, she's very much still high school, going for whoever's cool at the moment. So every time she would hire these people, they would always be hired at the height of their fame, just as they were about to collapse, right? And so each of these situations, you had someone who she hired, and then their reputation got damaged. Colin Trevorrow, who I have great respect for, because I read his episode 9 script of Star Wars that should have been made. Trevorrow, he was up and coming with the Jurassic World stuff, and then he had an independent film that bombed. But and then right after that bomb, she's like, well, he's no longer cool anymore, and he was off of Star Wars, right? And then of course you have the famous incident of the now forgotten trilogy by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss from Game of Thrones, right? Infamy, hired at the height of their fame of Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, and then season 8, everybody hated it. And let me say this, and I really, this was the next thing I was going to bring up. I really wonder the timing of this announcement, the timing of this release, right after this absolute massive collapse in critic support for the Eternals, with Chloe Zhao, who was hired at the peak, right at, getting the Oscar and all this. She was on that track, and then releases this movie
in this movie.
Yeah, and then Patty Jenkins then hits the Wonder Woman 84 track. And I mean, if I'm Chapek, I'm looking at this right now going, okay. And I mean, I'm sure he made this decision long before today. Yeah. There's no doubt. It gives him a
nice catalyst. It gives him
There was no doubt he made this decision some time ago. But I question the timing of this being dropped today.
Oh, no, it's
right after this Eternals collapse, right after the critics shanked that movie, and not 2 days before Disney's earnings call, not 4 days before Disney Plus Day, where Lucasfilm has to get out there, just like they did the last couple of years, and announce their slate going forward. Because it was last year in December when we were first told about Rogue Squadron. It was last year in December where they had the Acolyte up there on the screen. And again, I bet you won't see it this December. Trust me.
The rumor of the Acolyte was leaked intentionally. Yeah. This wasn't even rumor. This was put out through the pro-Chapek Hollywood Reporter. We know that particular trade is a mouthpiece for Mr. Chapek. And this was done intentionally, both for the timing, so that people would not be shocked when it's not on the schedule in a few days from now. But it's also specific timing with the Eternals. As someone on my Patreon was pointing out that, look, Ms. Zhao, Chloe Zhao, co-wrote the Eternals. And apparently the story, one of the big critiques is that it's boring. At least that's what the major critics are saying.
That has been the universal thing. And that is a cardinal sin. That is a superhero film. You must not commit.
Yeah.
There is no amount of confession in a Catholic church that will save you from boring in a superhero movie. There's nothing. There's no forgiveness for that. Ever.
Even Thor: Dark World wasn't boring. I didn't, unless you like that movie, but it wasn't.
I didn't either. But I didn't fall asleep during it like I did Captain Marvel.
People were falling asleep apparently,
Yeah.
And so that's in the Eternals. And so the fact that we have another writer director in her own mind putting this out there, and the investors are going, so you guys going to keep backing writer directors that have proven they don't know what they're doing when given writing things? That doesn't sound like a good idea. And so Chapek cut the legs off immediately on Monday morning. It's not a coincidence. And this was all done on purpose.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there is, and one thing, and you and I have had this conversation ad nauseum about Chapek. There is nothing about this guy that is accidental.
No.
I mean, there's nothing. He knows what he's doing. He is not a Hollywood-minded person. I mean, he is and he isn't. He is in the sense that, hey, I want to make good stuff. I want to make good movies. I want to make what sells. But at the same time, he's like, I don't give a crap if you like me at your country club or not. I'm here to make money because I know who put me in this job.
Yeah, and it wasn't the country crowd. He wasn't part of them. Like I said, when he was chosen, everyone in Hollywood was like, "Who the hell is this guy?
Yeah,
never heard of this guy. How come I never heard of this guy?" And then people were panicking, like, "What's happening here?" And that's why suddenly Bob Iger, well, don't worry, fellows, fellow youthful people, I'm back, right? And then everyone calmed down, right?
Yeah.
But that, I'm sure, was humiliating for Bob
Chapek. Chapek thinks that woke stuff will sell, he will sell it.
Yep.
If Chapek thinks that woke stuff isn't going to sell, he ain't selling it.
Yeah, and he won't.
I mean, that's what it is. It's all about the dollars for him, and that is why
he won't base that on intuition. He will base that on data, on actual data and returns.
And that's what Bob Iger hated about him, who made the comment, and we talked about this Sunday on Doomcock Show, when I said, it wasn't an accident that Chapek comes out and says, we're going back to a distribution focused model, meaning we're going to go back to having distribution who knows what audiences want, who knows what they can sell, make the decisions on the products that we produce versus letting artists have free reins and just throwing it on distribution and say, here, sell this shit.
And the thing is, it's not even artists, because Favreau is an artist. It is ideologues. It is ideologues.
Yes, ideologues. That's a better way to say it.
It's not even artists, because most of these artists are actually, most filmmakers love Star Wars. They were influenced by that. Our generation was influenced by that. So it's not that. It's literally this, what I call the club, this sort of elite executive, aristocratic legacy executives who deem themselves creatives. You know, and like, you're not the creatives, but you are because you're the ones instructing the creatives on what the ideology has to be. So you have hijacked the process.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with making films that can appeal to this audience and then another one to this audience. And I get all that.
And the problem is them, you budget it towards them. That's it.
Exactly. The budgeting, and you just hit the nail on the head. And that's just it. And that's what we've been talking about is when you're talking about 150 and $200 million production budgets that then command another $100 million plus in P&A, print and advertising, marketing for global marketing on these things. No, you cannot make niche products with $300 million of Disney money. You can't
say this movie wasn't made for you. A movie at that scale has to be made for everyone, or it cannot be profitable.
Right. And when Bob Iger came out a few weeks after or a few months after Chapek made his comments about we're going to go back to a distribution model, and we've had this discussion as well, Iger comes in and says, well, you know, I hope they don't, you know, use too many numbers and facts and statistics to decide what we're going to do. I hope we still focus on our creatives. I mean, that was a direct refutation of what Chapek wanted to do. And then what happens a few weeks after Iger says that? I'm pushing all of Marvel back. I'm pushing Indy 5 back. Rogue Squadron's gone.
That's when you know Iger's finished. Iger's chairman emeritus running around. You know, I don't think he's even sitting in the board meetings anymore.
No.
And so, you know, that's when you know he's finished. And
Chapek's officially gone December 31st, folks, as executive chairman.
Iger's officially gone.
Iger, I'm sorry. Yes, Iger is officially gone. Yes. Excuse me. Yeah, the wrong Bob. Yeah, no, Chapek's hanging around. Iger is still considered executive chairman. He's kind of in an emeritus position at this point.
He's like that professor that doesn't teach any more classes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they keep him on staff as a tenured professor. But
it looks good on the admissions thing that you've got this, you know, guy.
It has been. I cannot wait for this earnings call, and there might not be anything. There really, you know,
it's gonna be dull. You know that.
It's absolutely going to be dull. I think the only thing that could be a surprise, perhaps, is. You know, it's sometimes it's not about so much what they do say, it's about what they don't say.
Of course.
I mean, you always have to listen to, and most of the call usually winds up getting spent on topics like, of course, Disney Plus is going to be a factor, but they also spend a lot of time on Parks and Rec, the resorts and everything else like that, because that is the bread and butter of Disney.
Yeah, and that's what Chapek has the most experience with. So
exactly. Distribution, parks, merchandising, things like that is what butters the bread. Exactly. Now, of course, the second big portion of their moneymaker is linear television content. That's ABC networks, but most importantly, ESPN. A lot of people forget that Disney owns professional sports. And I don't say that as an exaggeration. They pretty much own professional sports. They own 30 or 28 or 30 of the 36 college football games, or college bowl games, excuse me. They own most of the contracts with the NFL, you know, with ESPN, with Monday Night Football, all the big ticket items. They have access to every college conference, all the SEC networks, the ACC networks. That's all. Baseball, soccer.
So I'm curious because I don't watch
that is their money machine.
But I'm curious. I don't watch ESPN. So I know there were criticisms a few years back that ESPN had become woke political in its commentators.
Oh, yeah.
Has that changed? Has that changed from what you've seen in the last few months? I don't know. I watched.
Not really.
They're still rambling stuff.
They're not. Here's the thing. When you're watching the games themselves, the live events, typically not. Every now and again, like if at a football game, you get a halftime thing, you know, you might get a commentator bring up some current event. Let's put it that way. But now, I mean, in terms of the sports shows, like if you watch ESPN on a Tuesday afternoon and you watch Stephen A. Smith, who's an idiot, you know, or some of these other dorks they have out there on ESPN that rattle off a bunch of garbage. Yeah, you're going to get highly politicized sports. But here's the thing. That's not what makes ESPN money. Okay. Nobody's watching Stephen A. Smith in the middle of the day. Nobody cares about him. The only time you see him is if you go into a restaurant at lunch in the middle of your workday and it happens to be on the TV. Nobody's sitting around and watching that moron. Okay. But the actual sporting events, you know, themselves, that's where the money's made. It's on those contracts. That's where Disney is buttering the bread, you know, on those live events from that standpoint. And so they have a lot of power. And a lot of people think, well, how does Disney make money if they have this movie that fails or this on Disney Plus isn't doing well? Because you got to understand that is not where the money's made. Now, the problem that's coming in, right, they have a huge empire, but what I want people to understand out there is that the movies and the television shows that they're putting in the theaters and on Disney Plus is supposed to be driving merchandising, which is a big ticket item for them. Of course. And
Baby Yoda dolls.
Right. And when you put out exactly the Baby Yoda Grogu stuff, that's why all of Star Wars has abandoned the sequel trilogy garbage and has moved to Mandoverse. Because when sequel trilogy came out, it's like, okay, the movies did not make Disney a lot of money. They really didn't. But they were expecting merchandising to make up for it. Well, they couldn't sell the merchandising. And then Jon Favreau makes Mandalorian, and it's like, we made a Disney Plus show for $100 million, and we just sold $500 million of frickin' Grogu dolls or whatever the hell it was. I mean, that's where I was like, okay, we found a cash cow. Yeah. So that's what they want. So when they make these movies, Eternals, and when they want to make Rogue Squadron, all this kind of stuff, a guy like Chapek's looking at it from a standpoint of, okay, what can I sell from this show? I mean, even Lucas did this back in the day when he made Return of the Jedi, and he made the frickin' Ewoks. Yeah, he's like, just so he could sell toys.
Yeah, so teddy bears, kids will like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. So you have to understand the reach of the empire, and it's not just about the movie itself, but also about the merchandise. And like I said, you look at Shang-Chi, you look at the Eternals, the toys were hitting the clearance racks before the movies even came out.
Who's buying a Shang-Chi toy?
Exactly. You know, there are still people. I mean, the #1 selling costume this year, Cameron, do you know what it was for Halloween? Same as it is every year, Spider-Man.
Okay. So speaks for
same kids costume, Spider-Man, and guess what? Captain America and Iron Man are still up there. You think any of these new characters are going to replace that? Hell no.
I'm sure women are still dressing as Slave Leia from Return of the Jedi.
Slave Leia, Wonder Woman, and you know, slutty cop, slutty witch, slutty. Yeah, that's
archetype. That's not. God bless them. I don't have any complaints of that.
I know. I'm not either, but I'm saying it in terms of superheroes. I'm like, but still, you know, those superheroes like the Wonder Woman stuff for girls is still top of the charts. Spider-Man for boys is still up there. Iron Man, Captain America, that's it. And Thor sometimes. It's still those core characters. They're not going to replace that with this new slate of crap that's coming out of the MCU. Yeah. And like we said, you know, now you've got this issue with there's nothing now. There's apart from, and this is the bottom line, folks, before we close out. If Jon Favreau does not have his personal hands on the project in Lucasfilm, do not count on it ever seeing the light of day. Yep. Mark my word. Yep. Okay, because
there's no reason at this point for Chapek to spend any more money. He'll close out the old contracts. I'm sure Ms. Jenkins got paid off whatever she got paid for. I'm sure she had a pay or play clause, and they're all going to get paid off when needs to be paid off, right? But there's no further reason to sink deeper into this, dig a bigger hole. There's just none. No. And that's the thing is the great thing for us is Chapek has literally brush fired the whole thing. Now we can start over. What everyone in the fandom has been asking for. How do we start over? This is how you start over. And that's where
like I said, that's why I don't think this was at all an accident that this was announced when it was.
No,
at all.
Nothing's an accident. Like,
no, 4 days before the Disney Plus day that this was let out publicly. Obviously, this was leaked by Disney. Yeah, I mean, this is a warning sign that whatever we see November 12th is not going to be what we expected.
The funny thing is, not only was it leaked by Disney through the Bob Chapek oriented trade, The Hollywood Reporter, that has essentially been his mouthpiece all year. Not only that, and you'll see that then it got spread to Deadline and other places, and all the other trades went with the official PR announcement that Ms. G was all scheduling problems. But The Hollywood Reporter, the original leaking outlet, questioned that and said it's unclear what could be the scheduling conflict because she's got nothing going, right?
Right.
Nothing's going. And they did that on purpose because that's Chapek putting it out that, she's finished. That was an unnecessary line in a trade. A trade's purpose is to spread essentially business propaganda. So that's an unnecessary line unless the person behind the story wants to tell everybody she's finished.
She wasn't doing anything. She wasn't doing anything, as far as I know, this entire year.
Yeah, and she's not doing anything next year, as far as we know.
No, I mean, she has some projects coming up. But I mean, I don't believe for a second they couldn't have found 90 days, 180 days of principal photography somewhere between this entire year and next year.
No, of course.
When they obviously, this was long in the works before it was announced December of last year. I mean, it was at least 6 months before that when this movie was planned. And you're telling me that I don't buy it. I mean, we've all heard of movies that have gone into development hell. Yeah.
Chapek wants you to know that, yes, I have to, for PR, let her say that she's busy with other things. But I want you investors to know I got rid of her. And you know why I got rid of her. It has nothing to do with her schedule. That was put there on purpose to tell people I'm in charge. The boats, I've swerved us away from the iceberg.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think the stink of Wonder Woman 84 absolutely soured that boat. No question. I mean that was. Yeah, I knew Rogue Squadron was finished when I walked out of that movie. Yeah,
because I was horrified. I was like, I couldn't believe a movie I loved so much could produce this kind of sequel. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I believe it. So, anyway, Kamran, thanks for joining us again tonight. This was always a pleasure. I'm so glad you were here. I know we're going to talk more about this because, I think one way or the other in the next week between the Disney Investor Day and between Disney Plus Day, and I will say on the record, even if Kathleen Kennedy is still there on Disney Plus Day making the Lucasfilm announcements, I'm going to be very interested to see, like I said, it's not about what is said, it's about what isn't said. And if Acolyte isn't mentioned, obviously Rogue One or Rogue Squadron is off. I think the Acolyte will be the next shoe to drop because that's, I mean, the Rian Johnson trilogy was never going to happen. Everything that she has said that she wanted to do, that she personally had her hands in, is now getting prison shanked.
If she were there, what is she going to talk about? There's nothing to talk about. But
all she's going to do is talk about Favreau's projects.
Yeah,
that's it.
And kiss his butt. And if she is there,
Blood and Bone or whatever that movie that she was going to do, and then I think she was talking about a Willow show, and then what is she going to talk about with Indy 5? Oh, I screwed that one up. We had to delay it another year because it's going to take so much time in post production.
He's got nothing to talk about. If she does show up, what you should be listening for. Here's my prediction time. Here's my Nostradamus time. Right. If Kathleen Kennedy does show up, what you need to be listening for in her talk are keywords that suggest this is her farewell tour. Keywords that suggest she's seeing the sunset coming. And you'll hear those in that sort of glorious, it'll be like Richard Nixon's resignation speech, where he spent all of his time, and I'm actually a bit of a fan historically of Nixon. I think he's an interesting guy. Nixon's resignation speech, the vast majority of it is just talking about all of his accomplishments, which were actually quite large. He did accomplish everything from the moon landing to the ending of the Vietnam War to opening up China. He did amazing things. And
I was going to say, Spock once said only Nixon could go to China.
Correct.
An old Vulcan proverb.
Yeah, it was an archetype, but the old Vulcan proverb. But that's an archetype. But he spent his entire speech talking about his accomplishments to end it with, "Well, guess I'll be moving on, but I'm proud of what I did." So look out for keys that you hear that sort of victory triumph speech of a Nixon resignation.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is something that has crossed my mind many times leading up to this week, and I'm going to completely agree with that. Is that, like I said, it's not about what she says, it's about what she doesn't say. But yes, I agree that part of me thought that if she does show up, there's a chance that she would effectively be delivering a farewell address.
Exactly.
And it would not surprise me. The fact that we're here on November 8th at this point, we're 9-10 days past when her contract, ostensibly by all information that we have, would have renewed. Because the last time it was renewed in 2018, it always revolves around October 30th because that was the date of sale of George Lucas to Disney of Lucasfilm was
Makes sense.
October 30th, 2012. Right.
Makes sense.
And it's always been 3 years. The last time she was renewed, again, it wasn't announced by Disney, just to remind everyone. It was leaked by Kennedy or her folks.
Into the trades.
Yeah, into the trades. That she
and
would,
her PR person is gone now. That
right.
person who did that has resigned.
Correct. And it said that, you know, that she would stay on through 2021. We assumed that to mean that she would stay on through her historically normal contract renewal date of October 30th. Now, that could have literally meant through the end of 2021. I don't think it did.
What, a few more weeks?
Yeah, another couple of months. I think that's possible. But again, that is the last actual hard data that we have. So that is why when we talk about this, that is why we use that date. That is why that always comes up, because that is fact. We know that much mathematically. We know that factually. Yeah. So we're going to find out. Like I said, I don't know where this is going to go, but every time we turn around, something else is being stripped away from her. And it's impossible to ignore at this point what's going on. So anyway, Kamran, thanks so much for being here, man. We're going to catch up again in another week or so. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about. Everybody out there, make sure you check out Kamran's Patreon page
where I make these predictions,
where he makes these predictions. So make sure you go subscribe. And if you're not subscribed to here already, and I know about 60, 70% of you guys watching these videos are not subscribed yet. So I hope this is the time that you
please do. This is an incredible channel.
Hit that sub button, hit the like button, share it out, drop a comment. We want to hear your thoughts as well. And until next time, take care.